Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven VC podcast. I am welcoming from, just near Los Angeles, German Aparicio, I should say. Welcome to the show, German.
Thank you for having me. Excited
Thank
to
you.
join you today.
Yeah, me too. And I just about got your surname right. I practice with you beforehand, and then it always happens that way, doesn't it? It's just,
Yeah.
it's the good old
No,
tongue
it's a
twist.
difficult name. My friends call me German. Last name pronounced Aparicio. If you're a Spanish speaker and you roll your R's, the proper way to pronounce my name is German Aparicio. And I learned maybe not too long ago, actually, Aparicio comes from the word apparition, which, from the Spanish speaking. Maybe that's not Spanish speaking. Maybe it's Latin just by background and the religious connection.
Yeah, I love that. There's always a great story. And we were actually just talking about brand, personal identity as well. So everyone has an amazing story to share about themselves. And quite often we never hear about it. Let's get into it. I'm looking forward to our conversation and so much to unpack in my favorite thing, which is the startup, ecosystem, the world of all of that. And you are right in the thick of it. And you operate at the intersection of startups and enterprise, designing the systems that allow early stage innovation to scale inside complex organizations. Great branding behind you as well. So you work for Trimble, and you lead the startup and partner innovation programs, including the 0 to 60 startup programs, which I'm really keen to delve into as part of our conversation today. And I'm sure our listeners, for all those startups, founders out there, I'm sure you can really share some unique and great insights as well as words of wisdom. So, like I said, including the 0 to 60 startup program, whereby you help founders move from the pilot to deployment by aligning the product, engineering, and commercial teams. Your work focuses on turning promising ideas into enterprise ready solutions. And you do that by removing the friction across the platforms, processes, and most importantly, the people. You can't have any sort of startup without the people part of it. You've got over a decade in the built with over a decade in the built environment and AECO ecosystems. I'll get you to explain what that means as well. German, you bring practical lens to venture and corporate innovation, where success is not just about building technology, but about integrating it into real world systems that hold under scale. And your approach to an ecosystem driven ecosystem is quite simple, connecting startups, corporates, and capital in ways that accelerate adoption without compromising trust, security, or execution. The other thing I probably would add to this is it sounds to me like you do it in a conscious way as well, which is really important from a conscious capital perspective. When I asked you what, how you have reshaped, I guess leadership business and investing, you said I've reshaped how early stage innovation is built and funded by designing founder first ecosystem driven models, most notably through the Trimble 0 to 60 startup program. And I've covered off what that includes. So slightly. So tell us a bit about your journey, how you got into Trimble, the 0 to 60 startup program. There's a lot of ground here that we can share with the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me. Excited to share that with your listeners. And to your point, yeah, everybody has a story and as part of the attraction to working with startups. Like each startup is different, but the way that I got involved in all this was from my time as an architect, right? So I was trained as an architect, went to undergrad for architecture school, spent some time in grad school, getting a background in design and computation from MIT before joining a company called Gary Technology. So I came to Trimble by way of in 2014. I joined Gary Technologies before that acquisition, and it was through my graduate school mentor, Dennis Sheldon, who invited me to join Gary Technologies to kind of focus on consulting, right? Working on building an infrastructure projects around the world. And so I never imagined being at a large organization. I thought I was joining a boutique firm before we were acquired by Trimble. And to Trimble's credit, they've been amazing, bringing on companies as part of acquisition, bringing them to their culture. I think it was a perfect fit. So spent a decade in consulting, working on building an infrastructure projects, kind of seeing firsthand what a number of our strategic customers were facing out in the industry. And so, as part of a consultant, we would implement Trimble and non-Trimble tech on a building or infrastructure project, developing bespoke technologies where we would help kind of deliver projects. But at the end, we would just throw away that technology, and I figured there's got to be a better way.
Oh,
And so that's where I started working with startup companies and launched this 060 program under the consulting arm to work with startups and try to figure out what we can do as a large organization, right? Given this opportunity working at a company like Trimble, how do we leverage our resources to help startups, small scale startups to help grow and scale their solutions? So we quickly learned from working with companies uh, like like Test Fits or Join, Monograph to mention a few, that each company was a little bit different, right? Talking about
mm,
journeys, each of their journeys was a little bit different. So learning how we could provide value, some of these companies needed help getting introductions to customers. And so there we facilitated some warm introductions. We had like closed door demo days where they would pitch to our customers. Others needed help getting access to technologies. Like as a startup, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So why not partner with a company like Trimble to build on top of existing solutions and as part of your tech stack and offer additional value to mutual customers. Others needed go-to market assistance, right? So, we tried to make introductions to our channel partners. Last year, we introduced the Trimble Marketplace as part of a participants' go-to market strategy. So, hosting solutions on top of our marketplace to give access to our customer base was something that evolved over time, but we learned early on, yeah, this was something that we could help with being a large organization. So started working with companies back in 2018, and it wasn't until 2023 that joined the ventures team to focus on this full time and scale this up. So year one, collaborated with SketchUp, which is one of our business units. And for those of you not familiar with that product, it's a 3D modeling platform that I learned when I was back in architecture school, and it's come a long way since I first learned it. It's beyond a 3D modeling platform now that integrates AI and other features, but more than a product, it's essentially a platform, right? And so year one of the scaling up this program, I decided to invite 10 companies to build on top of SketchUp as a platform, a desktop solution, mobile solution, cloud solution, and build the integration. So we invited them to our headquarters in Westminster. That's where we're based out of, and invited them to meet with our leadership team, design team, and engineers, can kind of conceptualize what an integration to SketchUp would look like. And it's a 2-day event that happens at the beginning of summer. And then we spend 12 weeks. So this accelerator model, right, where we focus on building that integration and pair these companies with subject matter experts, with engineers, design team from our UI UX teams to build out these integrations where traditionally, startups would kind of use a self-serve model, download access to APIs, SDKs, and build something on their own. We assign resources to help accelerate that and go to market quicker. So then we build a working proof of concept as part of this and have a big showcase in November at our annual conference called Dimensions. And as part of that effort, we have each of the startups present their integrations to our audience, which attracts 5 to 7,000 people each year in Las Vegas.
that's right.
It's a great opportunity for our startups to meet our customer base. And based on that success, been continuing the program and talk more detail about, yeah, where we're at today.
I love all of that. What a great story. And firepower comes to mind for me for all these startups. I know it's accelerating, but it's also the firepower that you're providing to take them to the next level. And it's so required in startup when you think that, you can do it all. And yet there's times where you're just like, oh, I need help. And here you are providing that. 0 to 60. I'm really curious. What's the 0 to 60 part of this, like in terms of the 0 to 60 startup program? Is that a goal or is that like an intention? What is that?
Yeah, the name comes from the motivation of just like in the high performance world, right? Taking something from 0 to 60 in a short amount of time. So borrowed from, the racing world, right? From like Formula One or NASCAR, where that's kind of the baseline, right? And so to your point, we weren't interested in a program that takes companies from 0 to 1, so from idea into a solution, but actually the next layer, which is taking an existing company that has already maybe product market fit, has 1 or 2 customers. So as part of our criteria, we look for companies under 2 million ARR, founded in the last 5 years. How do we take that existing solution and scale that up, right? Using our platform and ecosystem and various resources to assist with that. And so that was kind of the motivation behind the name. And you know, trying to build the program I wish I had when I came out of grad school. And people like myself, I always think if I wasn't at Trimble, I'd probably be working on my own startup. And so trying to create the program I wish I had when I came out of school.
Yeah, because it's all practical, right? You don't have that when you're in school. You get all the theory and then you come out and then all of a sudden it's like, how do I put all this together? Like, you might be a matter, like an expert in one thing, but building a business, starting it up and then scaling it's a completely different ballgame. There's so many facets to that, to the business. And I think that, and I love your thoughts on this quite often, I think that's where founders can get stuck in terms of they can get so focused on one thing and and it could be that they're so focused on the product piece. And then there's the commercial aspect that you were talking about, the go to market, even for me, based on my background, the brand piece, the brand identity, how do you bring that to life? That plays a really big part of your story, especially also when you're pitching, etc. The way you sell to your customers. Do you agree? Like, do you see that a lot when you, with the sort of the startups that come on board, that they might be focused in one aspect and then there's a whole bigger picture that they haven't even been exposed to as yet as part of, like, I guess, starting and scaling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially in our industry, and like I'm thinking the construction industry. So Trimble as a whole, haven't gotten into detail about Trimble, right? Founded in 1970 by Charlie Trimble that came out of HP, took the kind of GPS technology, licensed it, and we're known for our hardware for site surveying and scanning solutions, and over time grown the software portfolio. So now mainly a software company, but we service a number of industries. So it's the AECO, which stands for Architecture, Engineering, Construction, and Operations for those.
Thank you.
Yeah, field systems, which now encompasses, civil, earthworks, geospatial, and transportation. So those are kind of the three areas that we work in. So logistics, 3D mapping, et cetera. And so your question was regarding, sorry, remind me.
No, no. So basically, my question was more that when you're, with regards to the founders and, when you're talking around, you look at businesses that are under 2 million and have started within 5 years, you must see all the time the founders they're so almost specialized in one thing. And then they come into your ecosystem or the 0 to 60 startup program.
Right. So what I was going to say in the construction industry, right, a lot of the founders come from the industry. I mean, they're engineers by nature. So yeah, they're focused on the product, solving the pain point. They don't really have the business acumen. I mean, some of the best companies that I see, right, have or more successful companies, right, have the technical founder that maybe comes from industry, and then we see the somebody with the business acumen, right, that has an MBA. That's probably the CEO. But in our industry, sometimes it's the same person, right? It's the technical founder, so they're focused on the product. And so, creating a program that helps educate some of these founders in achieving scale, right, and going to market and scaling up their product. Like I mentioned, a lot of the companies we work with already have a product market fit. They might have 1 or 2 customers that are piloting their technology. Maybe they're paid pilots, so they have some revenue coming in. How to achieve that next level of growth, I think, is super important. Getting access to our customer base, right? Understanding how Trimble has done that in the past. Like I mentioned, I came to Trimble by way of acquisition, so I like to think of Trimble as a company of companies, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of our products came by way of acquisition. SketchUp I think about often came from Google, for example. We have Tekla as part of that. Trimble Connect was part of the Gary Technologies acquisition, among others. And so we're a company of companies. And so we have founders that came through acquisition that are still around at Trimble. And so we try to leverage their expertise and share their journeys as part of our program. Last year, for example, Orla Kreitz, who was part of StructShare, was acquired by Trimble. And so he was a founder himself, has kind of gone through the process of getting acquired by Trimble, is now part of the Trimble leadership team, and included him in the Trimble 060 program, right, to serve as that mentor and lead our founder success and mentorship initiatives to provide those kind of insights and share his story with our various participants.
Yeah, because it's so much lived experience. It's just so untapped at times in terms of the highs, the lows, all the in-betweens, the ability founder to founder. I think that is so, so important. I want to pivot slightly. When we spoke weeks ago, and then I was just saying to you pre-show, oh gosh, it feels like we spoke weeks ago and we also only spoke yesterday. And you said to me, yeah, it's a whole new world. And we're in a whole new world, but coming right back to Trimble and right back to what you guys, what you specialize in. And you mentioned, obviously engineers, like from an engineer perspective with AI and this whole new world. I mean, it's a whole new world for everybody. And in 2026 in particular, it's running at such a pace. Do you see with Trimble and the 0 to 60 startup, is that just a continuous, evolution in terms of this new world we're in? And you said you're just enjoying the ride, and I was talking to you about, it's impossible to keep up. How does your 0 to 60 startup program with the founders as well as Trimble, how do you continue to adapt, adjust with everything, and in particular, the engineers with AI roles, changes in what's possible in business, etc. I don't know if that's a question. I guess it's just more, yeah, what are you seeing, I guess, within your ecosystem? What's changing and how much this new world is influencing that for good and for potentially problematic?
Yeah, I think I don't know, I'm optimistic about the future. I'm excited about where
Me
things
too.
are headed. I'm excited about where things, when I say I'm just enjoying the wave is, yeah, things are moving so fast that uh, I'm excited about the opportunity that brings along with it. I think what's changing is the time frames and what you are able to do, yeah, in a short amount of time with less resources, right? So I mentioned I was just at NVIDIA GTC and the announcements made there. And I think one of the bigger announcements is this work around OpenClaw. And I think that changed a lot of things recently in the last few months, right? Where in AI, we had kind of our chat GBT moment in 2022. And now we had OpenClaw here in 2025, 2026, early, you know, 2026. And with NVIDIA getting behind that project and supporting it for enterprises, I think it's taken to a new level. But what's exciting about all that is not just technology for technology's sake, but the fact that now you can have a startup, right? Or you can be an individual at an existing organization, or a individual with an idea for a company that's trying to solve a problem and leverage these technologies to build in a faster, shorter amount of time. What I mean by that is you can start a company with just one, two persons, right? And have a whole army of agents now, right? To
Mm.
help you creating a product and going to market, right, in a shorter amount of time, getting that product market fit, getting feedback from customers. What used to take, like the development cycles used to take a long time, right, to be able to code something and put it to market, get that feedback, and then iterate on that. Now you can do it in a shorter amount of time. And so what I see coming is more startup companies than less. I see more private organizations than public organizations coming online, and agents becoming part of the teams for large organizations like ourselves, but also startups. And I'm kind of excited about the intersection between all those things.
Me
So what
too.
does it, yeah, what
Yeah.
does it look like, right, to have a 060 participant who is a one, two-person organization with the army of agents developing an AI native solution and not just thinking about it from a technology perspective, but also from a business model perspective. What does it mean to be AI native from a resourcing and hiring perspective? Right? Do I need to hire a person, or can I just create an agent that creates a item that we integrate into our ecosystem? So I don't see it as a winner take all. I see it as we can all win in this
Agree.
future. And so what I'm trying to build with 060 is a platform for startups to be able to join, build on top of our solutions, and extend the capabilities, that we have together for to provide a mutual benefit to our mutual customers.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's so interesting you call out the team, the people, and in terms of from a human versus or not versus a human and an agent. And it's funny, someone asked me the other day, B, at some point you're going to need to, have more people in your team. And they were talking about humans. And I was a little bit for the first time ever, a little bit miffed in terms of, because for me, I have a little team. They're not humans at this point in time, but I've got agents that I've set up, and it was the first time ever I'd thought I was thinking, "Hang on a second, I do have a team. It's just not a visible team as you would see it, just with a huge amount of humans." And then I was also even thinking about subscriptions, and my subscriptions are going through the roof at the moment. But that's versus an FTE. That's where I'm set, a full-time employee versus the subscription of setting up an agent or whatever. The whole commercial component is also evolving. The economic landscape, everything. The business model in its totality for me is what I see as super exciting in terms of what's possible, and then this reshaping of what it all looks like. Because I truly believe that the human intelligence, the potential piece is so important along with all the technology that's coming through like you talk about. And I think that's where the opportunities lie.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, what we're finding in our industry, referring again to the design and construction industry, is like that skilled labor is what's needed to take, AI and AI agents to the next level. So it's not enough to just have a foundation model, but to be able to inform that model or build the agent, right, with the knowledge that exists in the industry. And one of the challenges that our industry is facing is this kind of aging workforce, right? So how do we
Yeah.
transfer the knowledge from that workforce to the next generation? And AI kind of presents an opportunity to do some of that. And so, yeah, excited to work with startups that are thinking about those type of solutions. And when I talk to them, I always think about, where is Trimble's role in that whole ecosystem. And I always think, the way I position it when I talk to founders is to think about Trimble as kind of the system of record, right? Is where a lot of the data exists, which a lot of these startup companies need. And so Trimble Connect, for example, is our platform where you would find a number of 3D data, 2D data in the form of drawings, point cloud data in terms of reality capture, construction data in the form of RFIs and submittals, project site built on top of Trimble Connect, right? Another solution where you'd find that. So when I talk to startups, I tell them to think about us like the system of record, and hopefully they're developing the system of action, and together, right, we're able to develop solutions that again provide mutual value to our customers. A lot of this kind of bring this back to my previous experience. There's things that I saw in industry and consulting. It used to be that we would ask for extra machines. Like we never asked for more people as part of
Mm.
our consulting engagements at Trimble Consulting. We always ask for more machines to help process information because a lot of our role was focused on federating data, bringing different data sets together to make informed decisions for project delivery. So we would always ask for like additional machines to
Right.
do things overnight when we were asleep. And I think it's no different now. Now we're asking for AIs, right, and agents. And so, can I get a DGA Spark to build my own claw, to take care of one aspect, and how do I layer that right into multiple agents and scale that up. And so what we're becoming is orchestrators of these different AI agents, and
Yeah,
to
love
me
it.
that's exciting and no different than it was previously, just augmenting our teams with additional intelligence.
Yeah, so true. So true. A couple of final questions for you. You talked around this aging workforce. Within your 0 to 60 startup program, does the age range vary? Like I know you said five that they need to be 5 years and within 5 years. Are you seeing more entrepreneurs at a younger age, or are you seeing older? Like what's the mix that you have within your program?
Yeah, generally speaking, I think there's the demographic of startups, right, is on the younger side, but I think we're seeing more and more senior founders, people in their 40s and maybe early 50s, which I think is interesting. What's
Mm,
exciting for me for the design and construction industry is how do we attract talent from other industries that are doing some of this innovative cutting edge stuff that's industry adjacent. So working with companies that come from, you know, the tech industry, who are developing knowledge graphs, that are focus on scaling up data centers, infrastructure on the cutting edge of AI, maybe doing, computer vision algorithms in the health industry, or developing natural language, right, solutions, focus on ontology. How do we bring those kind of expertise into our industry to solve some of the challenges that we're facing? I think is super exciting. So in that world, right, some of these founders are pretty seasoned, right? They spent years
yeah,
like working
experience.
at tech companies, having solving real challenges, understand how to scale a company, how to grow revenue, and then yeah, using this current moment in time that we're in, where we have this emerging technology, and where the taking advantage of where the opportunity exists, which in my world is the design and construction space.
Mm, It's really interesting, the emerging technology. I feel like there's also emerging complexity, and then it's looking at you need those problem solvers to come in and pr- you know as complexity is continuing to emerge as we're going, it's also having those problem solvers that are able to spot the problem before it becomes a serious problem, and that's where for me the two come together: the emerging technology and the emerging complexity, and that is in itself is I think is a critical point in time. You seem like someone that is super focused, like buzzing in terms of from your industry and also what's possible, this new world we're in. I'm all about this new world. At times though, it feels like we need that ability to switch off and almost, and you've got two little young ones, you were saying two little young children. How do you ensure, because working with startups and founders, it's intense. How do you ensure that you get your fresh perspectives, the ability to turn off from, the emerging technology and everything and the complexity of everything so that you come back into what you're doing with fresh ideas, fresh perspectives, that mindset, high performance piece, back to the high performance, racing car driver, they have their on season, their off season. What do you do to ensure that, you're looking after you also?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm always I don't know if I ever switch it off. I'm always on, but I bring my kids along for the ride. I think we have a lot of fun together, and I don't see it as being very different. I mean, I'm trying to take my lessons learned, my experience, my knowledge over the years, and try to help startups grow. So I see my kids, as like little startups of their own.
So
And when I make the parallels to AI, the idea of what's all the rage these days is physical AI. Like, how do we take AI into the physical form, right? Manifesting into the real world, and it's taking on the form of robotics these days. I don't think it's very different than how you share knowledge with or train, let's say, an AI model, right, to inform it about the real world, how we perceive the world, and how they should behave in this world is no different than how you teach your kids, right,
mm,
how to behave. So when I think of AI, it's kind of at its early stages, in its infant stages, right? And some would say, yeah, treat it like, you know, a recent graduate, right, coming out of school, and so you still have to teach it about the industry, about its nuances, and how to scale from there. And so, yeah, a lot. I see a lot of overlap and parallels that to me are interesting, and hoping to bring my kids along for the ride, and hopefully those lessons and knowledge that I'm transferring are good ones, right? And bring positive values that provide, contribute to the world in a good way.
I love that. What did you say your kids call you, or what do they see as your job title, or I should say job title, but your title in terms of what you do? You said something funny at the start of the show, of a pre-show.
No, I just like the yeah, you were talking about my background. I said that sounds amazing on paper. When I talk to my kids, it's more like I jump on calls and push buttons, right? Because that's like physically, I'm not I'm not digging holes. I have dug holes in the past. I think everybody should learn how to dig a hole, especially in this industry. Move dirt around. Triple Dimensions is a great opportunity for those, which is our annual conference, to come and test this technology on a construction site. Should definitely do that. But I don't get to do that on a daily basis, right? It's sitting in front of a machine, talking to different people around the world is how I'm able to scale this program up and talk to so many different minds. But I always appreciate coming in person, meeting, and being able to share experiences with people. You mentioned at the beginning of the call, it's about everybody's journey. Everybody has a story.
Yeah,
So I love
100%.
attending industry events and sharing those stories with others and how we might be able to collaborate and work together.
Love it, Jim, and you've just given the advice. I didn't even have to ask you. For anyone listening here who is in construction, and I'm sure there's plenty, get in there and use those machines, get into the dirt. It's only when you actually are in the practicalities of it that you can truly understand how it all works together. Jim, and how do we find out more about Trimble? How do we find out more about 0 to 60, your startup program? And then how do we find out more about you?
Yeah, so for those interested in Trimble, you can visit trimble.com. If you're interested in learning about our 060 program, you can go to trimble.com/0 60 startups. And we really recently launched our call for applications for this year's cohort. So excited to share with your audience that we're not just focused on software, we're also focused on hardware this year. So not just AECO, but field systems team. So that includes works, civil, geospatial, and the workflows between the two. So connecting the job site, right, to the office. Yeah, just recently launched our call for applications that's currently open. So it's a open invitation for all your audience to come and apply now. We also just brought home a Built World's Accelerator Program of the Year award, which we're
Okay.
super excited about as validation, that we're just not an accelerator program for startups to join and partner with, but we're really championing the various companies, and we're trying to help these companies grow and scale and join our ecosystem. So excited for that recognition and working with the most innovative companies in the industry. And then to
Amazing.
learn more about myself, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you could always find me on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out, and yeah, explore how we might be able to work together.
Thank you, German. Such a great conversation. I really appreciate your time and wishing you all the best with the rest of this year and riding the, what did you say? Right, was it riding the wave? No. Yeah, was it no riding the
Yeah, we can ride the tsunami, ride the wave, right? Information. This it very much feels like they're riding the wave
riding the horse? I was telling you about the horse, yeah. So yeah, just glide on through. Have a great evening. Thank you so much.
so much.